So long. Why is everything so long? Her neck is unusually stretched. The fingers are unnaturally long. Her hips so wide, but the head is much smaller than it should be. And the painting as a whole is beautiful? Elegant? What's happening here? I mean, this is a Renaissance painting, so how did we go from the exact mathematical figures of Leonardo da Vinci to this in just a few decades? And what does all of that have to do with this salt and pepper compartment? Welcome back to my channel, and let's talk about Mannerism. What we're used to when it comes to Renaissance art is the works of Da Vinci and Raphael with all of their mathematical accuracy. They were obsessed with accuracy and balance. Renaissance is when we start to have perspective in paintings. A couple of the most famous examples of that are The School of Athens by Raphael and The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. Notice the precision. The lines are all precisely based on the perspective. Figures that are closer to the viewer seem bigger. Those that are further away are smaller. The visual balance is exact. No part of the image drags your eye more. The figures are distributed evenly through the painting. Other than that, look at the figures. Their anatomies are exact. Yes, they're idealized proportions of a perfect body, but a real body can look like this. So, in general, everything makes sense. You understand what's going on. It's real. It's as if the artist is standing there painting a real scene that is happening, like how a street photographer takes a sudden photograph of a crowd of people. Now, take everything that I said and let's look at this painting one more time. This is Madonna with Long Neck by Parmigianino, the famous Italian artist of the 16th century. Keep in mind that this painting is just about 30 years after Raphael and Leonardo. But it looks so different. It breaks so many rules. A perfect clear perspective? Gone. She's so much bigger than she should be. And look at this mysterious guy. Why is he so small? If this was an accurate perspective, he must have been standing far away to look this small. But he's standing right here. We talked about visual balance. There is a crowd of angelic creatures all crammed on the left side, but the right side is almost empty. There is just a white column. We talked about anatomical accuracy. Well, the anatomy of the Madonna is obviously wrong. She's way too tall and stretched. We saw her neck and her unusual fingers. Her head is too small when you look at her very wide hips. The anatomy of the child Jesus is also a bit skewed. His proportions are more similar to a more grown-up child, and the feet are too small. So overall, this image is not as real as the Renaissance paintings that we saw. It's much more imaginative. Okay, well, is that a bad painting? Is this just an unskilled painter who doesn't know what he's doing? Well, no. Look at it. It might not be as accurate as the Renaissance paintings that we saw, but it's filled with emotion. The elongated figure of the mother has given the painting so much grace. The gentle hand on the chest gives you love and care. It gives you a sense of whimsy. The sense of supernatural and whimsy isn't there in these paintings by Da Vinci and Raphael. Both of these show the Virgin and Child too. They're so masterfully accurate and captivating, but there is no element of supernatural freedom. These paintings are from the era that we usually refer to as High Renaissance. That ended with the death of Raphael and Da Vinci. And what we're seeing here is the style commonly known as Mannerism. And it started mainly in Florence in the 16th century, and then took over all of European art. Now, the problem is that Mannerist art is so hard to describe, but the characteristics that we talked about are a common thing in Mannerism. Let's look at some other Mannerist artworks to really get a grasp of this era. Mannerism was a rise against the accuracy and rigidity of the classical art that was praised during the Renaissance. But why would they do that? Why would they break the rules that made Renaissance art Renaissance art? There are so many reasons, but the main one is simple. Why not? Why wouldn't they let their artistic mind wander around and make fantastical paintings? Don't forget, this is the latter part of Renaissance, and during the 300 years of Renaissance, everybody is building up the character and worth of the artist. They went from being nobody in the Middle Ages to having God-given talents blessed by the Lord. And when you're hyping the artist up, you can't expect them to not give in to their artistic fancy. Look at this early Mannerist work by Pontormo. This is no longer a depiction of a scene that makes sense. It's more like a frozen frame of a theatrical scene. Again, you can see the twisted, exaggerated figures of Mannerism, and there is absolutely no sense of real space here. Everyone is stacked on top of one another. Here, the body of Christ is so weightless. You can see how this guy is supporting it on tiptoes. And one other Mannerist thing that is going on in this painting is that the center of the painting doesn't have much weight to it. Look at these high Renaissance paintings. The center is super important in all of them. That's a very Renaissance kind of composition. But here, the center isn't a face or a figure. It's where the hands are gathered together. It supercharges the connection between Mary and his child and all of the mourners. You can see that Mannerism moves towards more allegory and a new approach to the old concepts. And this new approach is also in the main topic of the paintings too. What is the story of this painting? Is it the deposition, bringing Christ down from the cross? Or the entombment, putting Christ's body to rest in his tomb? We don't know. Whichever it is, it shows nothing in the setting. No cross or tomb is visible. Even in the Madonna with long neck, what is this? The Madonna embracing the child Christ, or Mary embracing the dead body of Christ? This double meaning is probably why the anatomy of the child is something between a child and an adult. All of a sudden, the works have layers of meaning open to interpretation. All of that comes from the freedom that the artists feel. They're leaning more into their personal styles. That's where the word Mannerism comes from. It roughly means styled. Now, the same type of bodies and contortions are visible in the Mannerist sculptures too. Like the many works of the famous Mannerist sculptor Bologna. This is the most famous one, the abduction of a Sabine woman. The contorted figures are like the Mannerist works that we already saw. And this is the way Mannerism continued all through the 16th century. And it spread all through Europe. We can see the examples of Mannerism at its best in the works of Tintoretto and El Greco. I suggest you take a look at their work and experience for yourself this very different anti-classical style of art. Finally, wait a second. Didn't Michelangelo do most of the things you said first? But he wasn't a Mannerist. Yeah, that's true, he did. But we consider him one of the top high Renaissance artists. Of course, it's not like someday Parmigianino woke up and decided to twist his figures and make them float in air. There are clear traces of these elements in the works of Michelangelo towards the end of his career. Look at the huge fresco of the Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel. The huge crowd of people all over the painting with twisted bodies, and the real sense of unclear perspective of the work is really striking. It makes the feeling of doomsday much stronger in the viewer. And his sculptures show all of that too. Look at Giuliano de' Medici's tomb. He used the imbalanced, uneasy figures here. And he was very influenced by this ancient Greek statue that they dug up from underground in 1506, right in front of Michelangelo's eyes. And he was impressed with the way the figures were. And on top of that, don't forget, Michelangelo was a big advocate of letting artists get lost in their artistic vision and create something pure. Also, making art costs a lot. So if the patrons weren't supportive of this new movement, it couldn't have survived and become as big as it did. And pretentious people are all the same throughout history. They like to show that they support and understand something new that others don't understand. So they actually commission many of the Mannerist works. Just look at this work by Benvenuto Cellini, the Italian goldsmith. This was commissioned by the King of France, Francis I. This is a salt and pepper compartment. Salt and pepper. I mean, hold on. These are my salt and pepper shakers. But for Francis, no. He got to have a Mannerist golden sculpture on his table for that. And that was kind of the point. The statue not only shows riches beyond imagination, it is also a conversation starter for any visitor. You can imagine if you see this, you're going to be like, "What's that you got there, Your Majesty?" And when you look at it, you can recognize the ambiguous Mannerist attributes of the work, and it makes you feel like a peasant. Finally, I want to point out something very important, a misconception about Mannerism. These artists didn't break the classical rules because they were bored. There was a lot going on back then. The art of each era and each place is a reflection of the social political atmosphere of that time. High Renaissance of the end of 15th century had a more or less stable social atmosphere, so the art was also very structured, balanced, and stable. But the Mannerists broke this structure at the same time that the structure of the Catholic Church was broken. This is at the height of Martin Luther's Protestant movement. So there was a crisis of faith going on in the society. And this is the same time that the sack of Rome happened. So war is raging through Europe too. And the art mirrors that, filled with tension, imbalance, uncertainty. The pain and the emotion take center stage, and the people living in that society understand it and feel the feelings when they see these work. So, to sum it up, this lady doesn't have a long neck because of an anatomical mistake. Her long neck is the beginning of what becomes the first legitimate artistic movement where the artists rebel against the set conventions of art and let their creativity loose. This rampant creativity gets tamed and organized into the Baroque movement of the 17th century. Some historians see Mannerism as the first modern movement in art history, because this pattern repeats again and again. Rococo movement breaks the French classicism. Neoclassicism breaks Rococo. Or how in the 20th century, the Dada movement breaks the pretentious Impressionism and then gets organized into Surrealism. So the story of the long neck is the story of what becomes centuries of rebelliousness in the history of art. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys. This would help the channel so much. So press the like and subscribe buttons. Also, check out the description. I've put all of my sources there. I'm waiting for your opinions and suggestions down in the comments. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.